So now let's talk about the mechanics of profit maximization for a monopolistically competitive firm. We're going to have the same rule as we've always had, which is that we're going to go ahead and produce all units that have marginal revenue greater than or equal to their marginal cost. I'm going to go ahead and draw a set of cost curves that is a little bit different than the textbook uses when doing the monopolistic competition model. In particular, a question that sometimes comes up with students is, well, don't most businesses have economies of scale, and doesn't that mean that most industries are going to end up being some kind of monopoly? And the answer is going to be no. And the way to look at this is, suppose we have an industry that has relatively large fixed costs and then it has a constant marginal cost per unit. And that means that our average cost curve looks like that, our average total cost curve looks like that, and our marginal cost curve looks like this. And then we're going to go ahead and have some demand curve. And let's suppose the demand curve initially looks like that, so that the marginal revenue curve initially looks like that. So solid line here is the demand curve, dotted line here is the marginal revenue curve. Now we know how to apply that profit maximization rule. Just like with a monopoly, we look for the profit maximizing quantity and price, and the profit maximizing quantity is here where the marginal cost curve and the marginal revenue curve intersect. So that is our quantity that maximizes profits. And then to see what price we charge, we look up here at the demand curve, and there's our price. And our firm has average total costs of where that quantity hits the average total cost curve. So average total costs are here. And this firm is earning some profits. And that's very nice for it. Unfortunately, remember that in monopolistic competition, there are no barriers to entry, and other firms are going to be able to produce close substitutes. So when other firms come into the market, what's going to happen is that the demand curve is going to shift down because the availability of substitutes steals some of this firm's demand. And as long as there are economic profits being made, other firms are going to see those profits and want to get into that industry, and that's going to keep on pushing the demand curve to the left. So eventually, as the demand falls and falls and falls, this firm is going to sell less and it's going to sell it at a lower price, and then eventually we're going to end up with this firm not making a profit. So let me go ahead and show you what the long run equilibrium is. And before I go on, this is the short run equilibrium with few competitors. So what if the firm has too many competitors? If it has too many competitors, then the level of demand is going to be quite low. And if the level of demand is quite low, the firm is going to be making losses. So we're going to have quantity on this axis again, and price or costs on this axis. So let's suppose this firm again has this cost structure that gives it economies of scale. So this is average total cost again. The dotted line is marginal cost again. What if the level of demand is initially very low? Solid line again is the demand curve. Dotted line is marginal revenue curve. So this firm is going to produce this right here. That's the best it can do. There's its quantity. And it's going to go ahead and find the price to charge by looking at the demand curve. So there's its price. That's supposed to be a P there. Okay. And its average total costs are here, from where this quantity hits the average total cost curve. So this firm is making some losses. It's making losses equal to this box, because its loss per unit is the height of that box there, and the length of, or width of the box is the number of units. Well, what's going to happen if this firm is making losses is that some of its competitors are likely going to be in the same position, because this marketplace is sort of overcrowded. Some firms are going to exit the industry, and as firms exit the industry, the demand curve is going to shift out. And eventually, we're going to end up in a situation, a sort of Goldilocks situation here, where the level of demand in the market is going to be enough to allow firms to break even on average. So when these things touch, when the demand curve and the average total cost curve touch, there is going to be a price that will allow firms to break even. So this is the long run equilibrium price, and it's going to equal average total cost. So firms are neither making economic losses and want to leave the industry, nor are they making economic profits and want to enter the industry. Down here, if we look at what's going on with marginal revenue and marginal cost, we would see that this firm has marginal costs that are down here, and it's charging a really significant markup. So we have this sort of thing that's very common in retail environments. Firms are charging a large markup over their cost of goods, or their cost of making a particular sale, but they have to do that just to cover all their fixed costs and break even. And again, that's very, very typical in retail and restaurants and that kind of thing. Something like a radio station would fit this bill as well. And so sometimes people say that, many media sources have giant economies of scale, and therefore they're natural monopolies. Well, not really, because of this whole issue of free entry and highly substitutable goods. So that's what we get in the long-run equilibrium of monopolistic competition. We get price equals average total cost, and price is greater than marginal cost. So again, this reflects firms making a high markup on their cost of goods. This means that firms are not, making huge economic profits. So essentially this big markup covers their fixed cost, the cost of the rent and all that kind of stuff.